Well, hello. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video on the reserve tank system in the Geha fountain pens. Now, this is a brand of pen you haven't seen in a long time. Now, if you see the Geha brand, it's owned by Pelican, and you'll just see it on some office equipment. I guess Pelican was too scared to compete with them, so they bought them out instead. But anyway, in all seriousness, so Geha had a reserve tank, and I'm going to just put a quick look here at how the reserve tank system works. A viewer sent this. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say his name, so I'll just show you the picture he sent me, but it's a vintage advertisement. And you can see in the reserve tank system, basically you're just opening up a hole in the bottom of the ink tank and letting the last couple of drops drain down in order to have that reserve tank. But this is where it gets fun. I wanted to talk about how are we going to fill this pen that's no longer made, this cartridge converter pen that doesn't use standard international cartridges. Well, I think I have an answer for you. So a few answers. So let's take a look.
All right, so I am on the close-up camera for this video. So just remember that some things are going to be distorted because it is a close-up camera. But what I want to talk about here is the Geha pens, specifically the cartridge converter pens. Now, I have never found a converter for a Geha. You can find their vintage cartridges. So for whatever that's worth, I'll put pictures of all the sides of the box down below. So I actually have a Geha cartridge right here. So we'll take a look at it. Let's get even closer, because that's why we're using this awful camera. So it's got a fat end and a narrow end, just like normal cartridges. The narrow end is a standard international. So this is a standard international. This is what's different. So it's got just a little flip cap in here. When you put the cartridge in, you snork that open. But let's pull back just a tiny bit. Ooh, that might be a little too bright. I don't know how to turn down the exposure on this thing, though. Anyway, that's the opening we're looking at. So we're looking for pens that can work with that opening, or converters. Now, I'm going to just show you. This is from a Geha 705. Pull up a little. So this is... let's try and get some light over top. There we go. Well, sorta. If I keep it at an angle, maybe. So that's what it's got to go on. That's the... Okay, you're not dealing with this because I've fixed it in post-production, but everything is backwards for me. Sucks. Okay, so that's what we're working with. That's the nipple. Now, I did a video about this tank system. So when I press the switch on that, I just press the bottom of the nib, not the switch. You can see this whole assembly lifts up, and what you can't tell is down below there was a valve that opened up. And when I put the Geha cartridge in, oh, not this one. There. When I put the Geha cartridge in, oh, that's why. When I put the Geha cartridge in, it pushes it back down. Now, I know that not everything I find is going to activate this tank system, this reserve tank. But I need something that can fit over that nipple. Now, what Geha sold originally when they sold their cartridges is they came with this metal piece So you could have your cartridge that's in use, and then a spare cartridge. Yep, so this is vintage ink here. You'd have your spare cartridge, and they're just sitting in here like this, or maybe like this, I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, however they sit in there. And they would just sit in there, and you have your spare cartridge once the reserve tank is used up. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment. And one of the alternatives I've discussed on here that was given to me by a viewer is let's use platinum converters. So, okay, here's a platinum converter. There's the opening. And like I said, I'm setting that pen aside for a reason. We'll come back to it, why. But here is a Geha Champion with a platinum converter. And the platinum converter sits in there pretty firmly. If I push up the reserve tank, and then I put in my converter, yeah, it doesn't push it back down. But if I put in a Geha cartridge, pushes it back down. Okay. So, one of those things you might have to live with because you're trying to make something work. Now, here's the crazy part. How does this compare? Oops, that's not a Geha. I got 2 different cartridge converter videos I'm working on, so, So how does that compare? So, as somebody pointed out to me when I did my first video on this, the platinum has a much larger opening than the Geha. The nice thing with the platinum is it will go on to other pens. It will go onto the Geha pen, so I can use a converter with it. Because, there's a finite number of Geha cartridges out there. Now, the trouble I found with this platinum is there was one pen. Now, you can't tell because you're just trusting me, but it is not going on there at all. It goes in, but not firmly, and it just pulls right out. But for all but this Geha 705, that has worked. I don't have the reserve tank, but like I accidentally did earlier, I can just take a cartridge. It's not Geha, and usually, let's reserve tank. Okay. And then we'll stick in the wrong end of this Kaweco converter, which is for another video. And it activates the reserve tank. Now, that I can understand why the platinum wouldn't do that. So that got me to thinking, I haven't just heard of platinum, I have heard about Cross. Cross has its own proprietary cartridge and converter. So one end is sealed, the other end is open. And at first blush, okay, so the white one is the, let's see here, get this under the camera. The white one is the Geha, the clear one is the Cross. So at first blush, the opening looks the same, but the aroundy part isn't the same. So that makes me wonder, well, hey, it fits. Now, actually, that answers another question. It pulled up the reserve tank when I pulled it out. So now let's put it in again. Yep, the reserve tank went down. We're writing along. We got it almost empty. The whole cartridge goes up, but who am I to complain? So the whole cartridge went up when I opened up the reserve tank, but, Let's put it in the Geha Champion just to see. So it works in here. Reserve tank, yes, it does push the cartridge up. And now I'm curious. Okay, so the fat end doesn't fit. Skinny end goes right through, so I don't know if I can use this piece of metal. Maybe it'll just keep do I have another one laying around here? No, I guess not. Maybe it'll just keep the two of them from banging around. But that brought up another question. This is a cross pen. Because if you watch this channel, you know me. I like my bottled ink. So here is a cross converter. So we're going to compare it here to the cross cartridge, and yeah, kind of the same. The openings. You know, cartridges are made out of not quite as good a plastic. Openings look very oops, get them the same height. Openings are very similar other than the plastic thing. Compare it to the platinum converter. The openings look a lot the same. Won't go in. And finally, the Geha converter, or cartridge, sorry. Again, the around part, very different, but the inner part, very much the same. And I don't know what's about to happen. So we've got the reserve tank up on the Geha Champion. Put in the converter. The reserve tank comes down. So far, so good. Awkward. That's as far as I can screw it down. So, could I shave off about that much of the converter? Maybe. But remember, with what happens with the converter, why does it have all that on it? Let's try and get this so you can see it. I got a light right in my face over top of the preview camera. So let's turn down Alright, I might have something here. So I am going to grab a toothpick. So I'm going to borrow the favorite writing utensil of the Orange Menace. And we're just going to plumb the depths of this converter. Okay, so I'm going to put a blue mark right where it comes out. So the bottom of the blue. So that's how deep the piston is in. Now, if I screw this down, this is where I probably could have used a white background, but anyway. So that's how deep in the piston goes. So now I got this crazy question. If I press stop, because remember I only needed a little bit. If I go downstairs, grab one of my tools and cut off about that much of this converter, what's going to happen?
20 minutes later.
Ooh, baby, we know how to have fun at this channel. Okay, so there's the bit I cut off. So now, I filed it, but kind of messy. So now, let's stick it in. Ooh, that's tight. Let's just see if that's normal. No, it's not normal. Why is it tight? Don't know if you can see that, but up at the end of the barrel, there's little grippers. So now I'm just curious to try it in the other Geha. This dude, the 705. The little grippers, I'm guessing, are there partly to help stabilize Yeah, this doesn't have quite the number of grippers. Okay, so it does work. Now, there's one other thing I'm going to be curious about, but I brought one more pen over here to try. This is a Geha. Don't remember. Don't care. Okay, but it's metal, so it doesn't have the little gripper doodles in the end, unless the inside is lined with plastic. No, I don't see gripper doodles. Oh, this one might be tight. Yeah, so this barrel's just a little bit shorter, so it's not fitting. Okay. But that brings me to one more test. I've got so many nibs and sections laying here, it's going to make me crazy. But it brings me to one more test I want to do. So we're going to put this in. Move all of this to one side. And we're going to give it a little drink. We're going to do this with water just in case it's messy. Okay, so filling decently, about as decently as I expected. Better. Forced out more air. And about as good as I get with a lot of converters with 3. Well, let's just do one more. I'm pretty sure that's it. Okay. So now, we're just going to dry the end off really well. And we're doing this with water for a reason you're about to see. So, screwing on the back of the pen, you need to help me watch around the nib and the feed. Screwing. Okay, don't say screwing. You teach teenagers, you know better. All right. So I squeezed out water. So that would be something to keep in mind if you go the Geha route, or I'm sorry, the cross route. And I can't push the reserve tank up at all. But what that comes down to, cross is an option. We'll use the toothpick to brace all this nonsense. Round toothpicks don't brace around converters real well. Okay, try that again. Awkward. Alright, so we have a cross converter as an option. Cross cartridges fit without surgery. You can use a Geha if you can find the vintage. You can use a platinum. And so that brings me one more question. What about a platinum cartridge? Do you have one? Why, yes I do. So let's try a platinum cartridge. Now, comparing it to the end of the converter, I've got less metal around it, but I have a big hole. So let's just... fits in the naughty pen really well. Now let's use up our reserve tank. Okay, it does not push down the reserve tank. But if I push in this end, reserve tank is down. Push in my platinum converter. Now, when I push up the reserve tank, what happens to the end of the cartridge? Cartridge. Did that go up at all? I can't tell. Let's try that again. All right, I don't think that went up at all. So, happy days. Let's add platinum convert cartridges as another option for all of you Geha fans out there. So I know you crazy animals are out there.
All right, so that's how I'm filling my Geha pens. Yes, you can syringe fill the old Geha cartridges if you find them. Cartridges being a lower quality plastic, I don't know if that's a viable long-term solution, but it is a solution for a while. And you get all features of the Geha pens that way, you know, the reserve tank and everything. I've never found a Geha converter, but here's another option, platinum. So you can use platinum cartridges or platinum converters. Uh, it doesn't activate the reserve tank system, but as far as I can tell, you can use the reserve tank system around it, so your mileage may vary, but that's what I've seen. But it doesn't fit all Geha pens. Another option is cross and platinum cartridges. So the platinum cartridges fit. The cross cartridges fit. Again, the same problem with the reserve tank system, but other than that, they work pretty well. And then finally, you could use a cross converter, but you may have to saw off a little bit of the end of a cross converter. And that's okay. That's not that hard. Just be careful when you put your pen barrel on because you may have some little issues. So anyway, I hope that was interesting. Hope it was useful. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.